As Donald Trump and Joe Biden square off in the 2020 election, an undeniably important part of the contest is the race for campaign funds. With presidential elections, campaign money is probably less predictive of election results as it is with lower profile races, such as local or congressional races. A widely cited example is of course the fact that Donald Trump beat Hilary Clinton when she outraised him significantly in 2016. Richer campaigns can lose presidential elections, but it's of course a lot easier to win if you can buy more ads, open more campaign offices, and employ a larger staff. Campaign fundraising can therefore be helpful in predicting who will win an election, but it can also help you to predict what a candidate will do if they win the election. Donors can be expected to give to political campaigns for one or both of two possible reasons: to support a political candidate that can be expected to promote the donor's interests and ideals, or to increase a politician's alignment with the interests and ideals of the donor. Tracking campaign revenue sources can therefore be predictive of a political candidate's priorities. In this video, I will break down where Donald Trump and Joe Biden are getting their campaign money and update you about their fundraising totals so far, as we explore this vital question about the 2020 presidential election: who's winning the money race? When it comes to fundraising for the 2020 presidential election, the incumbent President Donald Trump has had a significant head start. Trump's re-election bid began unusually early, as he formally registered his 2020 campaign with the FEC on his inauguration day back in 2017. Joe Biden, on the other hand, had not even secured his place as the Democratic Party's presumptive presidential nominee until well into 2020. When his primary victories on Super Tuesday and beyond gave him an unbeatable lead over the opposing candidates. Prior to this, Biden's fundraising was fairly underwhelming compared to many of his opponents, although he did enter the race with the largest 24-hour fundraising haul of $6.3 million. Trump's head start was by no means wasted. By the end of 2019, Trump had raised over $80 million in campaign cash. At that time, Biden was only beginning to turn around his lackluster fundraising performance, raising an impressive $22.7 million in the fourth quarter of 2019. Since securing his place as the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party, Biden's campaign is outpacing Trump's in raising money, but it still lags behind. For the second quarter of 2020, Trump's re-election campaign and the Republican National Committee announced that they had raised $266 million in the 3 months ending in June. A few hours later, Biden's campaign and the Democratic National Committee announced that they had raised $282 million in the same period. Looking just at FEC filings of campaign committees, with data up to date as of June 30th, Trump leads with $343 million to Biden's $273 million. Perhaps more crucial is their cash on hand, the campaign money they have not yet spent. At the end of June, Trump still led Biden with around $113 million cash on hand to Biden's $109 million. Looking at this graph of campaign committee fundraising, several things are clear. Trump has so far outraised every major presidential campaign from the last decade. Biden has yet to match the haul of his predecessor Barack Obama. Campaign committees themselves, however, are just a part of the picture. When you add the fundraising figures of affiliates and party committees, a broader understanding of the money race is made clear. The Biden Victory Fund has so far raised $86 million, significantly less than the Trump Make America Great Committee, which has raised $125 million. The Biden Action Fund has raised just under $12 million, less than half of the $27 million raised by Trump Victory. The Democratic National Committee has so far raised $12.5 million. The Republican National Committee has raised nearly triple, $36 million. All told, an NPR report which tallies these figures and the campaign committee totals shows a grand total of over $1 billion directed towards Trump's campaign, with Biden lagging significantly behind at $633 million. Using a more limited set of data, Open Secrets analysis puts the combined total for Biden and supportive outside groups at $410 million, with $148 million cash on hand. For Trump, it's a combined total of $416 million raised and $134 million cash on hand. So while Biden's fundraising is beginning to outpace Trump's by most measures also indicate he has quite a bit of catching up to do. Of course, as I mentioned in the intro, Trump's 2016 campaign against Hilary Clinton demonstrates that even if Biden does not catch up to Trump, that doesn't mean that his campaign is doomed. It certainly hurts his campaign substantially to be underfunded in comparison, but the disparity in funding is not necessarily an insurmountable challenge. While the fundraising totals boasted by Trump and Biden are quite different, the sources of those funds have some striking similarities. Top sectors donating to Donald Trump, including both his campaign and outside groups, include the following: finance, insurance and real estate, single-issue groups, miscellaneous businesses, and the health sector. For Biden, the top sectors include finance, insurance and real estate, single-issue groups, lawyers and lobbyists, miscellaneous businesses, communications and electronics, and the health sector. All of the following industries are included in the top 20 industries donating to both Trump and Biden: securities and investment, miscellaneous finance, real estate, lawyers, health professionals, and education. But there are some distinctions to be made. Top industries donating to Trump but not Biden include manufacturing and distribution, oil and gas, insurance, crop production and basic processing, hospitals, and general as well as special trade contractors. Some top industries donating to Biden but not as much to Trump include TV, film, and music industries, electronics, pharmaceuticals, public sector unions, and tourism. I won't speculate here as to why these particular differences exist, but that certainly is worth some discussion in the comment section, so please do share your thoughts. Back during the Democratic primary race, fundraising methodology varied widely amongst disparate candidates. Several candidates, most prominently Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, focused on grassroots fundraising strategies and disavowed big money fundraisers, which meant that they raised most of their money in small donation sizes from individual contributors. Candidates like Pete Buttigieg and Joe Biden, on the other hand, raised more money from wealthy people and big money bundlers. In the general election, the fundraising methodologies are far less varied. Both Trump and Biden are pursuing an all-of-the-above approach to raising funds. Both are aggressively pursuing small dollar donations from supporters. Both are likewise going after big money. All told, Trump's campaign has raised around 57% of its money from small individual contributions, while large contributions make up 42%. Candidate self-financing, which made up nearly 20% of his finances back in 2016, now makes up essentially 0% of his total funds. Biden's campaign has relied slightly more heavily on larger contributions, to a tune of just under 60% of its total raised. Small individual contributions of less than $200 make up just 40% of his incoming funds. Even while Biden's campaign has leaned more heavily on large contributions than that of Trump, some reporting in mid-June suggested that the campaign was relying more heavily on small contributions than expected, as many big money Democratic donors had yet to contribute. According to a report by CNBC, bundlers say that some donors who have the ability to give six-figure checks have sometimes been on the sidelines since the start of the summer, while the pandemic hit the economy and executives have struggled to find the time to raise cash for Biden. There are other factors these people added as to why wealthy donors, who can now give just over $620,000 to a joint fundraising committee that raises money for the campaign and the Democratic National Committee, are staying quiet on Biden. Some say the party donors aren't sold yet on Biden's candidacy and are waiting out the summer months to give to him, one of the people said. Others said that wealthy financiers are waiting to see who Biden selects as his running mate, with many pressuring his team not to select Warren, who is a staunch critic of big business. Another explained that some wealthy donors have yet to hear from Biden or his aides to ask for their help and have taken that as a sign that they don't need to immediately get involved. Yet already when it comes to big money, Biden appears to be turning the tide. A month after this article was released, a New York Times headline read, "Biden banks $242 million as big-name donors write huge checks." Big money donors do really make a difference despite campaign contribution limits for individual contributors. Aside from workarounds like bundling, PACs, and super PACs, the donation limits for individuals expand when you look at all the places that they can put their money. As that New York Times article explains, donation limits during the general election skyrocket because, as the expected nominee, Mr. Biden can raise money simultaneously for his own campaign, the Democratic National Committee, and state parties. Checks can be as large as $620,600. Perhaps the most interesting billionaire contribution so far for either campaign was a paltry but meaningful $500 contribution made to Biden's campaign by Jerry Hall, the wife of conservative media mogul Rupert Murdoch. More recently, more Murdoch money was added to Biden's coffers, as Rupert's son, James Murdoch, and his wife, Catherine Murdoch, each gave $615,000 to Biden and the Democratic Party. Overall, at present, Biden has the advantage when it comes to big money donors. According to reporting by Forbes, Biden now has at least 106 billionaire donors, while Trump has 93. Examining the overall fundraising levels and fundraising sources of both presidential campaigns, a number of unusual dynamics seem to have emerged. While Republicans have traditionally been the home party of the wealthy, Joe Biden has clearly earned an edge in support from the highest level financial elites, while Trump has a distinct advantage in small dollar contributions. But while Trump campaigned in 2016 as a self-funded political outsider who called super PAC money unfair, his fundraising model in 2020 closely resembles that of a typical establishment Washington politician. While Trump has often been seen, for good or for ill, as a dynamic politician with an excited base of support, Biden is probably widely viewed as a more boring compromise selection for the Democratic Party. And yet, when it comes to raising money, Biden is now the dynamic force, rapidly adding to his campaign's coffers in a too-close-to-call effort to catch up to Trump's 3-year fundraising lead. When it comes to the simple question of who has more money now, Trump has a clear advantage. But considering Biden's fundraising momentum, it's anyone's guess as to how to answer the long-term interpretation of this question. Who's winning the money race?